last episode, that was part one of the Coaches Roundtable. Now I thought, let's get a couple of fresher faces. Not saying that the three mustaches that we had on the last time weren't the best, but those guys were outstanding. Got a lot of great feedback on that. But as you can see, I'm joined by three new coaches, and Coach Dave Tallman, Coach Zach Green, and Coach Scott Sorrell for this episode of 110 of Hoops Across the Mountain State, our second part two Coaches Roundtable. And as always, let's get right into these bios because as always, they are spectacular. So we'll start with Coach Tallman from Morgantown. And he is entering his 8th year as the Mohegans head coach. Overall record of 181-46. He's won 2 state titles at Morgantown in 2016 and 2022. In the 22 season, his team went 23-4, defeating Parkersburg South in the Class Quad A title, and they went undefeated against West Virginia schools last season as well. That 2016 team went 27-0, becoming the first AAA/Quad A. I'm going to consider them one. We'll get into that here shortly, but they became the first undefeated team in Class AAA because that's where they came from since the '85 Stonewall Jackson team. So that's very significant in of itself. Tallman has led Morgantown to the state tournament 6 times as the head coach, and he has an overall record of 9-4. And his dad, Dave Sr. at Magnolia, is entering his 30th season with the team as well. Moving on to Mr. Scott Sorrell from Williamstown, entering his 19th year as the head coach with the Yellow Jackets, earned his 300th victory last season, went 17-7 overall last year. He led the Yellow Jackets to the Class AA state title in 2022, the first in school history since 1962. Williamstown has qualified for the state tournament 6 times under Coach Sorrell, and they have an overall record of 6-4. And last but not least, Coach Zach Green from Logan. He's been the head coach since the 16-17 season, so he's going into his 6th season with the Wildcats. Played at Logan for Coach Mark Hatcher in the 03-04 season. 1 state tournament appearance, which came last season, and the Wildcats went 22-3. And he returns guys like Scotty Browning and Garrett Williamson being right in the top in Class AAA basketball. Well, let's get right underway. And guys, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having us, Taylor.
Thank you, Taylor.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So just to give the audience a little bit of a perspective of what we're going to discuss, we're going to talk about a variety of different topics, which will be different than what we discussed in part 1. But in this part 2 episode, we're going to talk about some new things. We're going to talk about the mental health of student athletes. That's very important, especially nowadays. As you know, as I was telling the guys before we started, it's become more and more important compared to 5 years, even 10 years ago, just because it wasn't really talked about much. But now it's starting to be talked about a lot more. But we'll talk about that. Biggest influence that got them into coaching. What did they focus on during the offseason, and especially during the 3-week period, which we are underway right now as we speak. And then we'll talk about the 4-class system, like we talked about with Coach Dave Rogers, Mick Price, and Rick Green as well. And then last but not least, we'll talk about if they can add or change one thing to West Virginia high school basketball, what would it be? So without further ado, let's dive right in. And Coach Tallman, I'll start with you. I'm just going to ask everybody the same question, but Coach Tallman, I'll start with you. When you look at the mental health of student athletes in this country, especially in West Virginia, you know, there was a number on the NFHS website that 32% of today's young people experience some form of anxiety disorder, whether that may be in the classroom, off the court, on the court, whatever that may be. 32% of student athletes struggle with that. So when you look at that, and whenever you hear that number, what does that mean, or what should we take from that number?
Well, you know, when you kind of asked me about this question, I didn't know what direction to take it, but I think a lot of it nowadays stems from just added pressure on these guys. You know, everybody wants to be recruited. You know, everybody thinks they should be playing high school basketball to get a scholarship instead of playing high school basketball to win with their team. So there's that balance that they have to have. I think parents are more involved, which can be a great thing, but can also be very detrimental. You know, when you got guys, you know, sitting in the front row trying to coach their kid while you're trying to coach them, or, you know, kids get in a car with their parents on the ride home and get screamed at the whole time, or, you know, they got to hear how bad of coaches we are and how they're getting screwed over. And, you know, I think it's hard for a young man to juggle that, where when we used to play, now I played from my dad, but which was probably harder than what a lot of people go through. But I think back in the day, like when I was at Wheeling Jesuit, and I was kind of a bubble guy. Like my coach tried to talk to my dad about that, and he was like, "Hey, Dave can count. Dave will talk to you. You talk to Dave. I'm staying out of this." I don't think those conversations happen much anymore between parents and their siblings, and I think it puts a lot of added pressure. Parents are trying to help, but I think they're putting a lot of added pressure on their student athletes. So sometimes it's just not fun for them to go out there and play. They play a lot better in practice when there's not a whole lot of pressure, and that's I think that's something that I got young kids growing up, I want to make sure that I'm supportive of my kids, and I'm not one that's putting added pressure on them, and let the coaches coach their kids.
Coach Green, when you look at those conversations that you have with your team, whether that be collectively or one-on-one, how often do you try and make it a point of just trying and checking in on your guys and just seeing how they are mentally? Because you obviously see them from a physicality standpoint, but from a mental standpoint, how often does that conversation be brought up?
Well, I try every single day. I have a routine that I do that every single day before practice. I try to find one kid on my team and spend at least 5 minutes talking to them about something other than basketball, just to try to get a feel for where they're at, where their head's at. Usually, as coach, you can see the kids who are struggling mentally. You can see that a lot of times. So if I see that, I'll make it a point that I talk to that kid. But every single day, I try to check in on at least one kid. So I make it a point before we get out on the floor, whether it's in the locker room, in my office, at school, I find them and I try to spend 5 minutes just talking to them, getting a feel for it. I think that as we move out of the pandemic, I think that mental health issues are going to get better. I think that was really detrimental to a lot of kids. I know our season at Logan High during the pandemic was miserable. We had 5 or 6 kids quit. We had straight A kids that were making 1.8s. There was a lot going on in that time period. And I think as it becomes more of a mainstream issue and we address it, I think it'll continue to get better. But like Coach said, I think a lot of it is due to the overwhelming pressure on high school athletes right now. I mean, it is overwhelming. But that is just something that I like to do on a daily basis. That it helps me mentally also, to put myself in their shoes. And, so that's something that I like to do just to try to keep up with my guys.
Coach Sora, when you look at the pandemic, because Coach Green brought up a very good point, that was the pandemic really changed how people thought, how people's mentalities changed about a variety of things. But when you look back at during that time, when you couldn't go one-on-one in person with them, but instead technology has obviously evolved, but how were you able to stay in consistent contact with them during a time where there was a lot of questions that were still unanswered?
Yeah, that's a great question, because we actually use Zoom a lot. We were trying to, and if you remember, but we went back, we didn't know if we were even going to have a season. Like the year that we won it, we didn't even know that we were going to have a season. So we tried to utilize all the technology that we could in Zoom and whatnot. But like these guys are saying, it's not the same as being in person. There's a lot of solitude involved. And when these, especially during the pandemic, when everything was locked down, I mean, even if these kids wanted to get a workout, they were getting a workout by themselves. And so, when people need that interaction with other people. And when they weren't getting it, I think during that time frame, it became tough for a lot of folks. Coaches, I think for us as well. I mean, we wanted to be around the players, we wanted to be around the other coaches, and that made it tough. One thing that I think is also, when I thought about this question is, with kids today, and it's so much different even than when I was in school or when Zach and Dave were in school. Their Twitter profile, they're always going for, for a lot of these guys that are basketball players, they're going for the next highlight, and for them, they want to put that highlight and pin it at the top of their Twitter page. And that's a lot of pressure on them as far as, they're wanting to make sure that their film is good enough. So, Coach A, Coach B, Coach C can see it. And I think that stuff alone is something that can affect kids and make them feel pressure. And I think our job as coaches, and I think I speak for Dave and Zach, is we try to, even though it's, we want to win more than anything, but we want to try to make sure that these kids are having fun because at the end of the day, we're playing a game here. And this game is a little bit of a microcosm of life. And, some of the lessons you learn from practice in some of these games, they can apply to whatever career that they get into as they get a little bit older. So I think we try to alleviate the pressure as much as we can with these guys, while still putting an emphasis on, hey, we have a job to do. And at the end of this job is some fun stuff. Hopefully a state title, but let's try to have fun while we're doing it. I think a lot of times that can get lost, like Dave was saying, maybe at the dinner table sometimes, or with their peers sometimes, that we are playing a game here at the end of the day.
Stay along those lines as well, because I think this sort of connects the dots with this statement, and that is, it seems like as coaches continue to evolve and basketball on and off the court continues to evolve as well, it seems like your all's duties continue to expand. And even some could say it's even more of as a father figure. Now the athlete's not obviously not going to say that to your face while they're playing, but then once a few years go by and they're starting to realize how much of an impact you all had, then it seems like that you all probably were a father figure for a lot of these athletes while they were playing. And they needed that as well while they were playing for you.
Yeah, I think that, when you get into coaching, you kind of understand that. I think everybody that gets into it knows that, hey, for some kids, every kid has a different home situation, and some kids come from amazing families, and we're really super lucky here in Williamstown. We have awesome families, and kids are super lucky. But there are situations, and when you get into coaching, there's going to be kids that need you, and I think that all of us, when we get into it, we know that that's part of the deal. And I've not met another head coach yet that hasn't been 100% willing to take that on and make that part of the gig. So it's important.
Coach Green, I'll go to you, because I think this is a perfect question for you. Just coaching in a community like Logan, a very passionate fan base. How have you sort of seen the community as well, whether it be boosters or people in local stores, really help these kids stay mentally sharp and holding them accountable whenever you or their parents can't see?
Well, I live in a community in Logan that obviously over the past 10 years have really struggled economically since the decline in coal. And we've seen, tons and tons of our blue collar middle class people move out. What we haven't seen is a decline in support, though. The community in Logan is, I like to say, unlike any other, but I haven't been to every community in West Virginia and across the country. But it's a very unique community as far as the support. There's a lot of pressure for me, but as far as for my guys outside of basketball, there's a ton of guys that they can lean on. There's a ton of people in our community that can lean on. Sports is kind of the main attraction in Logan. There's not a lot else right now, and so every business owner, nurse, doctor, whoever it might be, they're usually at our games. They're usually at the athletic events. So if any of our guys, need something in that aspect, there's a ton of people here to help them.
Coach Tallman, I'll go to you. And every coach that you talk with, everybody's trying to develop a family culture. And whenever I ask you, how do you go about developing and creating a family culture with your team? How do you go about doing that?
Well, that's a big question. We just try to make it so nice for our young men. I mean, we want them to work hard. We want them to play hard. But, we do a lot of things. We travel a lot. In the fall, we try to go to an event together. We just got back from DC Live in Washington, DC, where we were all together. Last year, we went to North Carolina for a tournament. This year, we're going to Tennessee. So I do a lot of fundraising, and our parents do a lot of fundraising, but we try to make things also fun, do a couple overnight trips every year. We redid our locker room, so it's just a beautiful area that they take pride in. And then I think, it's well known kind of the awards that we do after games. And, some people, I know Scotty gave out an awesome thing this year after his games, but just anything that's like cool and fun. I'm not, too good to do that. I think anything we can do nowadays to make it fun for these guys is important. After each practice, we give out a Warrior Award. And kids love it. It's amazing what they'll do for a sticker that costs 2 cents. How many charges it'll take to get that, and then it becomes a competition. But I'll give a lot of credit in Morgantown to our parents too. I mean, like the parent group I had last year was awesome. WVU is huge here, but the Mohegans are pretty big too, and the community support has been amazing. And I just, when everybody pulls the rope the same way, it makes my job even easier. And I've been blessed here at Morgantown with that type of stuff.
Shifting gears now, and Coach Green, I'll go to you, and I'll start with you with this. Whenever I bring up who was your biggest influence that ultimately got you into coaching, who would you attribute that to?
That would have to be Mark Hatcher. Coming out of college, I had graduated in December of 2009. He called me in February of 2010. That was Noah Cottrell's senior year. And he asked me to come home. I was kind of just living the college life. I'd already graduated. I was living with a friend, and got me into the game. And he has been my backbone ever since. I was hired in 2016 at 30 years old, had no head coaching experience, didn't know how to fundraise, didn't know how to set a schedule. I didn't know how to do anything but coach. I had been an assistant for him, and was really his skill and his floor guy. Didn't do anything outside of basketball. So my first 2.5, 3 years of coaching, I was on the phone with Mark Hatcher, seemed like every night, just trying to figure everything out. And he's been a huge influence on me, not only in the basketball aspect, but in my life.
Coach Toro?
So I think I'll probably have the same answer as Dave, which is my dad. My dad my dad is 74 years old. He is going into like his 58th season of coaching between girls and boys basketball. As you know, they did girls and boys in this, they would do girls in the fall and boys in the winter. And he's been coaching in West Virginia since 1974 or 75. He started off at 100 West Virginia. So I've always said this, like my second favorite program in the state is the 100 Hornets. Go Hornets. But yeah, exactly. And so my dad started there. He was the head boys coach there for 6 or 7 years, and then came to Williamstown and took the girls job. And he's been the girls head coach at Williamstown since 1984. And obviously a lot of what I have done in basketball is because of my dad, not just as a coach, but as a player too. I mean, I was able to progress my skill because of my dad being there and rebounding for me every night. And I just thought that was a cool life, like just living the being a kid, seeing what my dad did every day in practice, just to get ready for practice, but try to scheme and to take a team that was maybe a little bit inferior and actually beat a better team. That was really fun for me. I think that's part of the game that's fun for Dave and Zach too. I think I speak for all of us. We can't go out there and play anymore. I don't know. Zach may be able to go a little bit. He looks like he's in pretty good shape. But I know I can't go. I can't go out there and play. So coaching is a way for me to stay competitive. Keep my mind sharp. I feel like I'm one of the most competitive people I know. So it's a way to still compete.
Coach Tallman, what do you think is the biggest piece of advice that your dad gave to you about coaching?
Well, to answer the question before, I mean, like Scott's right. I mean, it would be my dad without question. The best advice I got from him was just observing him. Growing up, I don't think people realize this, because he's a great guy and everybody knows him, but he's very humble when it comes to his successes. He's won 3 state titles, and it's very rarely talked about. And he won them at a school that when he took over could care less about basketball. It was a football, baseball school. So when I was a young kid, they weren't very good when he first started off. I think there were seasons where they may have won a game or two. It was a struggle. But then, his 8th season he won a state title when I played for him, and then he won another state title with my two brothers, and then another one with Preston Boswell in that group, and then he also won one in high school, Payton City, back in 1973. So he should probably be on here instead of me, talking about this stuff. But just the way he handled all the adversity early on and what he did to build a program. I mean, I think he should write a book on how to build a program the right way. And then the way he's withstood that. I mean, he's won with, really good players, and he's won with guys that aren't so great. And he may have a down year, but they always seem to find a way to bounce back and get in the conversation. And I talk to him every day. I mean, so I know Scotty's the same way. We're both really blessed. We have a guy that we can pick up the phone and we know they're going to answer the phone when any situation happens, or, we're getting ready to play a game and we see some crazy zone. How do you beat this? So there's always that resource there. And I wouldn't even be close to the coach that I am without him in my life. I probably don't say that enough, but just really, truly blessed to have him.
Hey, Taylor, let me kind of tag on to that too, because, I've known Dave Sr. for a long time. The thing that strikes me about Dave's dad, Dave Sr., is that he has a way about him that has been consistent for, I don't know, Dave, how many years has he been the head coach of that program? I mean,
long time. Yeah.
He is 25 years where he's the type of guy that if they lose a game that they shouldn't lose, he doesn't freak out. You know what I mean? He has a really, really good perspective on the game. That is, I think it's pretty unique. Because a lot of, you see a lot of coaches, I could be one of them, that, things don't go right. We freak out, and I think Dave Sr. does a really, really good job of just kind of keeping a level head, whether it's going good, whether it's going bad. He's in the moment, he's never like losing perspective. So, Dave's a lot of the same way, I think, because of his father.
Coach Green, I'll go back to you because you were able to play for Coach Hatcher, and then you mentioned how you guys stay in consistent communication. And it sort of resonates from what Coach Tallman was saying about how he observed by playing and coaching and learning from his dad as well. But how were you able to, one, play for Coach Hatcher, but then also learn from him as well, and just combined everything together?
Well, there are days where Mark Hatcher still talks to me like I'm an 18-year-old player. Let's go ahead and get that out of the way. But no, I was able to take a lot from Mark. Mark is, I've always said Mark's a master motivator. He could get every single inch out of you. And he and I are completely different as far as coaching styles. I'm much more laid back than he is. I don't think he's ever laid back really, but the main thing I took from him is to give my guys everything and to be myself. He always pushed me to be myself. He didn't want me to try to be him or try to be Willie Akers or try to be anybody else that's coached at Logan High. He really wanted me to be myself and wanted my personality and my guys to understand my personality. He thought that was one of the biggest things for me as a new coach when I got the coaching job is to be myself. He felt like I knew the game and understood what we were trying to do at Logan High, and I just needed to be myself. But there are a lot of things. Obviously, he's a completely different person now than he was when he was coaching. He's been saved and is a Christian now, so we're in the process right now of trying to get him back on the bench, but he keeps telling me he doesn't know how effective of a coach he will be as a Christian. So I don't know if we'll be able to get it done, but we're trying. So yeah, there are a lot of things. I could talk to you for a long time about things I've learned from Mark, but the most important thing that he taught me, that he wanted me to do going into being the head coach at Logan High, was to be myself.
Scott, I'll go back to you because as we transition into year 3 with this 4-class system, there's mixed emotions across a variety of different platforms, whether it be a player, an outsider, a coach, whatever it may be. But you all took advantage of that in 2021, winning the Class AA state title. Whenever you look at this 4-class system, are you for it? Are you against it? Mixed feelings? Walk us through that.
So I'm probably the wrong guy to ask because we were a huge beneficiary of it. I mean, I'm definitely biased. The first year that they had the state tournament under the 4-class system, we won it. I know we were the 1 seed, but I think anybody in the state would tell you that we upset Poca, and I think they would be right to say that. But we were beneficiaries from it. So yeah, I think it's been good for a lot of the smaller schools. I know that it probably. My guess is, and Dave will have a better perspective on this than I will, but it feels like the Quad A schools, it probably doesn't affect them a ton. I think I'm seeing a lot of the same schools down there in the Quad A level that you kind of always saw when they were back in AAA. But I think for the smaller schools, it was beneficial for them. And, and I truly mean this, like nothing against private schools or, really small rural schools or whatever it is. I just think it's been good. There's been a lot more teams down there. And I think the SSAC would say this, from a financial standpoint, getting those extra teams down there, I do think it has been lucrative for the state tournament in general, which I don't think is a bad thing. You get more people from around the state down there. The state tournament is such an event. I think as state tournaments go in any sport in West Virginia, the basketball state tournament is such an event, and to get more people down there, I don't think is such a bad thing. I'm not saying it's perfect, or anything like that, but I think that it's definitely a step in the right direction.
Coach Tom, and whenever you look at the feedback that you've been able to receive regarding whether it be the success that you all have had or just a collective state of Class Quad A, just give us a synopsis of what you've been hearing.
Regards to the 4-class system?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Like Scott said, it hasn't really changed much for us. And, my only complaint was us having to play Thursday, Friday, Saturday back to back, which I know it's, you're nitpicking because you're there. So you want to play 3 in a row, but they have kind of corrected that. I'm a small school guy. I went to Magnolia. So, Williamstown, Logan, I'm familiar with that type of community feel. I think it's awesome, man. As a fan, when I go down there and I see the Webster counties show up and the Mans show up and the Williamstowns and the Magnolias and the Logans, and heck, man, the more the merrier. I think, there's nothing like being a kid and being able to run out there on that court and play in that environment. I mean, it's a dream come true in this state. And I think it really helps the little guys. I mean, that single A group probably didn't have much of a chance to compete because that single A and double A were kind of one class. I think of like where my dad went to high school, Payton City and schools like that. Like they had zero chance. Now they have a fighting chance to get there every once in a while. And I love it. I think it's good. Let's go down there for 2 weeks. I love the state tournament. So I know the media, it's a strain on you guys, but for us, we could be down there for a couple weeks and be just fine with it.
Hey, as long as the basketball is bouncing, I'm a happy camper. That's all that matters. But
same here.
But Coach Green, I want to take it from the lines of the community standpoint, because as everybody knows, Logan is a very passionate basketball town, as you have said, as people have observed over the years. And you all showed out as well. First time since you all had made it since 2012. You all go down there. What was the community feel like just being able to get back into the state tournament with this new 4-class system?
Well, it was there was a lot of excitement. That excitement ran out. We played on a Wednesday, so about Thursday morning at 9 o'clock. In a community like Logan, we've been the state tournament 44 times. So once you're there, that excitement flipped to a state championship. But there was a ton of excitement. It was the first time, like you said, in 10 years. I had a really good group of guys. We had a great season. I'm disappointed I didn't get asked about the 4-class system, because I'm kind of on the fence about it. I really like what Coach said, that there's a ton of opportunities for more kids to play in Charleston. I think probably 99% of West Virginia high school basketball players, that's goal number one, is to play in the Charleston Civic Center, you know. So the cons to it, I don't like the formula they use. And I'll give you an example why. So us in Chapmanville, two county rival schools. Right now, Chapmanville plays in AA. They have 700, I think roughly 725 kids. They're closer to Charleston, and economically they're right there with us, if not better than us, better standing than us. At Logan High, we have 600 kids, right over 600, are farther away from Charleston. And, you know, the county seat bumps us up. And I'm not sure. I thought after the 2 years, we were going to reevaluate those things. And I know they sat down and did, but that's something I think, you know, the equation that they use to come up with the classes, I think could be a little more clear cut, maybe some tweaking done to that. But I really like the direction that's going. I love the fact that we've had 2 consecutive years of public schools winning single A. I think that's tremendous. I know the support here in Man, in Logan County was tremendous for Man. So I like the direction that it's going. I just think it needs tweaked a little bit.
I got you. A little bit of piano as well. So I like the soft soothe with that. No, it's all good. Hey, we're here for it.
I will say that we are lucky that the powers that be, the ones that have to make these decisions to try to change things, it's really easy to do nothing. You know what I mean? It's super, super easy to do nothing and say, hey, like what we've done the last 50 years has worked. But even though like it may not be perfect, I do like that we do have leadership, whether it's in the SSAC or with the principals, that is willing to try something, you know, really willing to try something new, something different. You know, they rolled it out as a little bit of like a pilot for 2 years, but I do think it is, you know, it is good to know that those guys are willing to, you know, try something new and see if it works. If it didn't work, you know, they'll scrap it. If it does, you know, we can keep rolling with it.
Well, then let's just transition then, and that is whether or not you would add or change something to high school basketball. Because Coach Green brought up a lot of good points about the formula of the 4-class system, because that seems to be a common theme. So Scott, I'll stay with you. If you could add or change something to West Virginia high school basketball, what would it be?
Yeah, I think you're going to have a hard time finding a coach. Well, maybe not. But I think that most coaches probably want the whole thing seeded in some way, so it's a true tournament. You know, I know that there has been a proposal out there to divide the state in half, go north, go south, take 4 teams from the north, you know, play it off, have a big tournament in the north, get the best 4 teams from the north, they go to Charleston. Get the best 4 teams from the south, they go to Charleston. Then you have 8 teams there to play. I know that in the past it has been a question of what they call regional representation. But, you know, what's a region? I mean, a region, is it a county? Is it 2 counties? Is it 3? You know, is the Eastern Panhandle a region? Is the Northern Panhandle a region? I think if we divided it by north and south or east and west, however they wanted to do it, cut the state in half, play it off, you know, have a little tournament, northern part of the state, little tournament, southern part of the state, I think you could get some really, really solid tournaments. Back to the thing I was saying before, I am super happy that they that once the teams get down there and earn the right to play in Charleston, that they do see those teams, because they used to not do that. It used to be just, hey, Section 1 was going to play Section 7 in the first round of the state tournament, and it could have been the 2 best teams in the state. So I think the fact that they've seeded the state tournament is good. I think a lot of coaches would want to take it one step further and try to seed the entire thing, or at least parts of the state, and then go from there and see what happens.
Coach Green?
I'm right there with him. That was what I had. I think I would like to see it more done like the football playoffs, where we seed 1 through 16. Let the high seed host the first round, your final 8 go to Charleston. I think that would, I think if your goal and like Scott said, you know, they really want regional representation at the state tournament. But that's I'm not sure if that's the right thing to do for our kids. I think you want the best teams there. You want the teams to work the hardest and have worked to earn that. So I think if you, I mean, you could use the Metro News Power Index. There's a ton of indexes you could use to seed those 1 through 16. Have your high seed host that game, and then take your final 8 to Charleston. But I'm right with Scott. I would like to see a different, some sort of seeding playoff format.
Coach Tallman, do you have something to add, or are you in agreement with the other two?
Well, the original question is what would I change? 99% of the basketball in West Virginia I dearly love. I mean that. Like, I love it here. That's why I came back. I love the camaraderie of the coaches here. I love the camaraderie of the schools and everything. But yeah, I think that's the thing that I went third, but that was going to be my answer. I don't like the play-in game where you have the mulligan game. Well, if you're the better team and you win, you're undefeated at that point of the tournament, and you're playing like a Wheeling Park or a University who just lost, and you got to play them, and they're coming off a loss. They're a pretty good team coming off a loss. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard. Like, we gotta just keep running the table and be undefeated, and they're coming off a mulligan game, and I've benefited from that also. But I think it would just help if they seed it 1 through 16. Once we get to the sectional championships, there's 16 teams left. You could even start there, and I'm pretty sure that any coach in this state would be happy to drive across the state to play a game for a chance, one game to go to the state tournament. And that's what you're talking about. Once you get to 16, you're talking about one game to get to the state tournament, get it to 8. So Scott and Zach, I don't think any of us would mind driving anywhere for a game to go to the state tournament. Neither would our fans or our program. So, yeah, whether it's north, south, or we just go, we have to drive to Beckley or wherever it may be, or Huntington, I think we would get in the car and do that. And I think it helps your teams that really played well all year. Your 1 through 4 seeds are going to play that, 16, 15, 14, 13. It gives them more of a reward for the hard work and the wins that they put in during the regular season. Because right now it doesn't really matter kind of what you did when it pertains to your section and region.
Yeah, I think most of these kids would just, I mean, if you told them, hey, you got to play it on an outdoor court in order to go to the state tournament, they'd do it. I mean, that's that important to them. So yeah, I mean, I think coaches would drive wherever, no matter how far it is.
So I told you all before we started that I wanted to ask you what I asked the other 3 guys in the last episode about what makes West Virginia high school basketball special, which I will before we talk about the offseason and the 3-week period. But anybody can start. But whenever you guys think about what makes high school basketball in the state of West Virginia so special and so unique, what would that be?
I'll go first. I'm going to just give relationships, man. Like, I grew up in it since the day I was born. I know Scott's the same way. Zach, pretty much the same thing. Like, you go to the state tournament, it's so cool. Like, walking through the mall and running into, Zach and having a conversation with him or Scotty or, anybody. I mean, there's not very many coaches in this state that I don't like. And I can't even think of one. So that part of it, and just seeing the different communities and how excited the kids are. And it's just a really, really, really special thing. And I don't think I've ever missed one in my lifetime, a state tournament. So for me, it's when I came home, man, it was awesome to come back and have the opportunity at Morgantown. Being in Maryland for 10 years, I probably have a little different perspective. It's not as special as it is here. And I think, for me, it's all about the relationships with everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point that Dave just made. Those relationships that really do matter in the coaching fraternity. I think it's super important because we learn off of each other. I mean, we use that to learn off each other. But I think just the state tournament in general is so good here. I mean, I know that there are, we get all classes. So all 4 classes now, they play in the same venue for 4 straight days now. It used to be, well, yes, it used to be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So 4 straight days. But you get everybody in the same venue. And in some of these other states, I know that like one class will play at one venue, another class will play at a different venue. And so you have the whole state coming together for this state tournament. So I think that's the thing that is super unique about West Virginia basketball. But it's like Dave said, I mean, the relationships with the coaches, some of my best friends are in coaching. It's just good to bounce ideas off of each other and have some fellowship.
Coach Green?
I'll agree with what both of those said. I think the relationships that we have amongst coaches, amongst our players and fellow players and teams, I think is special. I think that the state tournament is extremely special. Like Scott said, I mean, you have the whole state there watching you, and it's something that 20 years from now, people are going to remember that. If they were there that day watching you, they're going to remember that. But I think also as our small communities and the way that they rally around their athletes and rally around their coaches and communities, I think it's extremely special. Over the last 2 years at Logan High, we've had 2 young men with cancer, and our communities have been unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable, to not only the kids, but to their families, to, our teams and our schools. I think that plays a huge part in retaining coaches and making it exciting for our kids. I think that the small communities around the state, when they get that chance to go to Charleston or go to Wheeling Island, it's not just a team event, it's a community event, and that's extremely special.
Taylor, I want to add something to that too. I think also you guys in the media and the Metro News and the way we're covering this state, especially at the state tournament, but even all year round. I mean, these kids are treated like rock stars, man. They're treated like Division I athletes. And I think the SSAC, I mean, we complain sometimes about them, but they're doing a great job for us right now. And they make that state tournament awesome. And the media, Tony Caridi called our kids' game last year. That's a dream come true for them. You know what I mean? So kudos to you guys. And I say that a lot, and also to the SSAC. And I'm not kissing butt when I say that, but I do mean that. It's way more good than there is bad out there.
I will ask this question, just going along those lines of what I just asked. Stepping onto that court, whether it be the first time in 20 years or you guys are there for back-to-back seasons, just being able to step back onto that court in that venue at the Charleston Coliseum and Convention Center, what's that feeling like? And anybody can answer that and start off, but I'm just curious, just from a coaching perspective, what's it like just being able just to step back up onto that court?
Well, I'll answer first. Mine was really short-lived. It was really quick, and we went home this year. So, but no, it's I'm fortunate to be able to play there as a player at Logan High. I played there in college in the West Virginia Conference tournament, so I had a lot of experience. It wasn't anything new, but it is really fun to look up in the stands and see your family, see your fans, see all the people that support you, and know that you're going to battle for them. And it's a unique event, and it's definitely special to be a part of.
Yeah, when we've been down there, I've just told the guys, I think sometimes we get so in this business mode that we're like, hey, you got a game to play. You got a game to play. We always tell the guys, hey, go out there for the first couple minutes, enjoy it, look around, just make sure you're having fun out there. And hopefully that relaxes them a little bit. And then, obviously we get a couple minutes into warm-ups, it's, hey, we got a job to do, but make sure you're out there enjoying it. And again, I know I said this earlier, but at the end of the day, we're playing a basketball game here. And this is hopefully something that's going to help them for their careers and, how they're going to be with their families. And that's the real goal of what we're trying to do here.
And for me, it's just magical. And in 2000, when I was a player, we were 10 and 11, and we somehow made it down there. And we were just like, man, this is cool. We're going to get to play a game down here. We had no thought that we were going to win the whole thing. And we were so loose that we went and won the whole thing. So those memories come back. And, just every time you step out there, it's magical. Like Zach said, whether you play or coach there. And I got to do it last year with the best Virginia team. I just love that arena. I think it's really cool. It's nostalgic, and it's just every time you step on there, it's magical. And the years you don't make it down there, it sucks. You definitely want to be out there, and you're a little envious watching other people that are.
Okay, now I have to ask: has anybody pulled a Norman Dale from Hoosiers? They get out the tape measure, or they have to measure the floor just because it's a lot bigger, and the depth perception is a lot larger as well. Has anybody pulled a Hoosiers before?
I've never done anything that extreme, but like when we try to, we play in a smaller gym here in Williamstown, and we try to get them in a gym with an open end. So like and Dave and Zach, you guys probably familiar with, like, so we'll ask Parkersburg High School if we can go down to their gym and shoot on. They have one end that's like in a bowl, and we'll try to get up thousands of shots on that hoop, trying to get them prepared that way. We've gone to Marietta College to practice to get ready for a state tournament game, but we've never put Ollie on somebody's shoulders and dropped the tape measure. We've never gone to that extreme.
I'm just patiently waiting for that day to come for somebody just to take a video of it and go on social media and be like, "Yeah, I saw that coming all along."
Taylor, they don't let us out there, man. It'd be awesome if we could go down a day early and practice on that court. Because Scotty's right, it's tough, man. It's a whole different ball game from what our kids are used to. So, but if they ever let us go down there and practice, I'll do that for you and take video. Send it in.
I knew I could count on you. I will say this though, just you guys, a couple of you guys have, obviously played there. You guys have coached there before. I think whenever I played there in 18, and then whenever going back there as a part of the media a number of years later, it felt a little bit smaller. You guys feel that way? I just feel like it's a little bit smaller whenever you go back there the second and third and fourth time around.
No.
Yeah, it's like when you're on the sideline, it feels big.
It's because you don't have the pressure on you, man. You're just writing about it. You have that pressure on your back.
It's a pretzel, Taylor.
I think it's bigger and bigger. I think it gets bigger and bigger.
Well, I mean, you talk about getting bigger and bigger. Every time I walk into Willie Akers Fieldhouse, I feel like it just gets bigger and bigger every time I get in there. So I'm just saying, yeah, it's a big venue.
Yeah, for our guys, that's not a huge adjustment. It is an adjustment. I mean, any high school, there's not many high school gyms across the country that are going to replicate that. But we are fortunate. We have a very large floor, a nice sized arena that's open, especially on our stage end. It is about as close to that environment you can get without getting in a big arena. So I thought it would be very beneficial for us, but we didn't shoot it well last year. So maybe I need to find somewhere else to practice that week. But
oh boy, hey, it's always a good venue though. I will say that. And going back to what you guys have said as well, talk about how West Virginia high school basketball is so special. I think it's the venues as well. I mean, there's a lot of great venues in the state. I mean, I mentioned Willie Akers. You have Parkersburg as well. There's a number of these schools statewide that I think is what makes high school basketball so rich and continues to be rich. I don't know. That's just from my point of view, since I was able to play there, and obviously now I can cover it on a much larger scale. But just a thought I had whenever you guys were talking about it. But
yeah, there's some good old places like Ravenswood, the Pit. I mean, you've probably been there before, Taylor, but that's a really cool place to play. And it seems like a lot of the gyms now, I mean, with oil, whether it's oil money coming in or whatever it is, they're like building these new gyms, and some of them are just beautiful. But something about some of those old gyms that have been around for 60, 70 years, going in and playing on those.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's transition into our final topic, and let's talk a little bit about the 3-week period along with preparations during the off season. And Coach Tallman, I'll start with you. You guys won the championship this past season. And when you go into a new offseason following a state championship victory, what do you focus on, or what's that first thing that really, you got to hone in on following a championship season?
Just to stay hungry. Don't relax. I think for us, I mean, we go in the off season, we want to get as big and strong as we can. We want to, Coach Beeline used to tell me, you're not going to make a bad shooter a great shooter, but if you're a good shooter and can become a great shooter, or if you're an okay shooter and you can become a good shooter in the off season, it's hard to become a better shooter in the season. So we try to get as big and strong as we can. We try to put that thing in the basket and work on our weaknesses as individuals, and then go out and play the best competition we can find. I mean, nothing matters right now. So, like I said, we went to DC and played 2 national powers last week. We're having our shootout this Saturday, trying to get the better teams. Scotty's coming up, and just find the best competition we can play and get strong and shoot a little better and dribble a little better and pass a little better. There's no like secret sauce to basketball. You got to put the work in and just try to improve as a team and try to improve as individuals.
Coach Green?
Yeah, I think we take a lot of time in the off season to work on skill development. I think that's really important in our off season. We also try to take that time to introduce, we typically have incoming freshmen or even younger kids that haven't played before or didn't get much playing time. We try to introduce a lot of the things that we do in our system and a lot of the core values that we have as a team, that we try to introduce those over that time. And we like to do a lot of observing during the 3-week period and during the summertime. Kind of gives us an idea where to go throughout the fall as we're progressing into season. So skill development's number one. We've really focused this year. We always have a staff goal that we try to work on throughout the summer. And this summer has been trying to grow our bench. We thought that our bench was a little bit short last year, and we had a ton of young guys that, have the opportunity to play big minutes for us this year. So we try to spend the summer getting those guys in as many situations as we can to get them comfortable and to get them confident in those situations. And that's pretty much what we focus on. Like Coach said, we do like to get bigger and stronger, but skill development is number one for us in the off season.
Coach Soro?
Yeah, I mean, they basically hit the nail on the head. I mean, for us, it's player development. We have our guys in the weight room four times a week, and then they have workouts that they do in the gym on their own. We host a summer league, so we're playing a lot of games. But our main concern is how are they developing as players. And I love what Coach Tallman said about you're not going to make a bad shooter a great shooter, but if a guy can get a little bit better in every aspect of the game, if they become, a 10% better ball handler and a 10% better shooter, and you have multiple guys doing that, that's going to help breed competition for your team. And, that competition is going to help breed success. And, we just want as many guys in the gym as possible, getting up as many shots as possible. And, we're really, really fortunate right now that we have a ton of kids that do that. I guarantee there are kids in the gym right now as I sit here. So, I think I think that's the main thing for most coaches. I mean, the stuff that you run on offense, the stuff that you run on defense, in the summer, it matters that maybe in the last possession of the game, but you want to see how kids can react, when a play breaks down and just how they can just, who can go hunt some points. And, we're kind of looking for those type of guys right now. So we're playing summer league and shootouts, like I said, going up to Coach Tallman's shootout this weekend with our JV and varsity team. And, we just want to go play some good teams that we haven't seen yet this year and see what happens.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This was very informational and very insightful as well. So I really do appreciate your all's time, and I look forward to seeing how each of your teams perform next season.
Hey, Taylor, thanks for having us, buddy. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Taylor.
Yeah.
Pleasure being with these two guys. I have a lot of respect for them and the old farts you had on earlier. They're awesome people, and we appreciate it.
Absolutely.
It's likewise, Dave. Appreciate it, buddy.
Yep. Yeah. Same both of you guys. Taylor, I appreciate it as always. It's a pleasure to join you guys.
Absolutely.
Good luck, guys.
And that'll conclude episode 110 of Hoops Across the Mountain State, our part 2 to Coaches Roundtable with my 3 terrific guests, Coach Dave Tallman from Morgantown, Coach Zach Green from Logan, and Coach Scott Soro from Williamstown High School. And without further ado, I'll catch you on next week when we talk to a WVSSAC official, and we'll try and dissect how officiating has changed here in the great state of West Virginia. Thank you all for listening, and stay safe.